I used to believe that a marriage was a shared garden, a living, breathing thing that required constant mutual effort. You till the soil together, you plant the seeds together, you pull the weeds together. You show up every day, even when it's not easy, even when the sun is scorching or the rain won't stop, because you are both invested in the harvest. I thought that's what we were doing, my wife, Sarah, and I, tending to our life together. Then, one Tuesday evening, she looked at me across the kitchen island, her expression calm and unnervingly clear, and said the words that salted the earth of everything I thought we were building. "I don't have to make you happy, Mark." At first, I laughed, a short, uncertain bark of a sound. I thought it was a joke, a poorly timed line from one of the self-help books she'd been devouring lately. I waited for the smirk, for the softening in her eyes, for the small, playful gesture that would tell me she didn't really mean it. But she wasn't laughing. She was dead serious, her gaze as steady and unyielding as polished stone. We had been arguing about something small, something insignificant, which is how most wars begin. It was about how distant she'd become, how she barely seemed to register my presence when I came home from work. I told her, my voice quiet, that I missed her, that I felt a growing chasm between us. Her response was not an explanation or a reassurance. It was a verdict, cold, sharp, and final. "I don't have to make you happy." The statement sucked the air from the room, leaving a vacuum in its wake. I gripped the cool granite of the kitchen counter, trying to anchor myself in a world that had suddenly tilted on its axis. "So, what are we even doing here then?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. She sighed, a put-upon sound, and rubbed her temple as if I were a particularly exhausting business problem she had to solve. "You act like I'm supposed to entertain you, to cater to your emotional needs all the time. I have my own life, Mark, my own happiness to cultivate. Your happiness, that's your responsibility, not mine." The way she said it so dismissive, so clinical, as if she were quoting a passage from a textbook, made something in my chest constrict. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that a marriage isn't two separate competing corporations of happiness. It's a partnership. We're supposed to care. We're supposed to be each other's primary support system. It's not just your happiness or my happiness. It's ours. But I didn't say any of that, because in that single brutal moment of clarity, I realized a profound and devastating truth. I was the only one in the garden. For years, I had been the only one pulling the weeds, watering the soil, tending to the roots. And she was just a visitor, someone who enjoyed the flowers but believed they grew on their own. I don't know why it hit me so hard that night. Maybe because it was the first time she had articulated her new philosophy so bluntly. But if I was being honest with myself, the signs, the creeping neglect, had been there for months. The small, almost imperceptible dismissals that, when stitched together, formed a tapestry of indifference. The way she'd roll her eyes when I tried to be affectionate. The way her texts during the day were brief and perfunctory, while her social media feed was a vibrant, flourishing garden of engagement with everyone else. The way she never, ever asked about my day anymore, never seemed to care whether I was happy, sad, or slowly drowning in the quiet stress of my own life. I had spent so much time ignoring it, telling myself it was just a rough patch, that we'd find our way back to each other. But now, she was saying it outright. She didn't see making me happy as her responsibility. And suddenly, I had to ask myself a question that had been buried deep beneath years of my own effort. Had she ever? I thought back to all the small, unreciprocated acts of love I had performed over the years, not out of obligation, but out of a deep, abiding desire to see her happy. Leaving little notes for her on the bathroom mirror. Remembering the small, intimate details of her life, her favorite snacks, the precise, almost alchemical way she liked her coffee, the way she needed to hear "drive safe" before she left the house, surprising her with date nights to her favorite restaurant, even when her excitement seemed muted and distracted. Putting aside my own stress, my own worries, to listen to hers, to make sure she felt heard, understood, and cared for. When had she last done any of that for me? I couldn't remember. Not because it had never happened, but because it had been so damn long ago that the memory had faded into the realm of myth. That night, after she had delivered her cold, clinical verdict, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She was turned away from me, the soft blue glow of her phone screen illuminating her face, a world away, completely unbothered by the fact that she had just shattered the very foundation of our marriage. She had told me the truth. She didn't think it was her job to make me happy. So why the hell had I spent so many years making her happiness the central project of my life? I turned on my side, watching her scroll through a life that no longer included me. She didn't even know I was looking at her. She didn't care. And that's when I made my decision. A quiet internal resolution that felt as solid and irreversible as a change in the seasons. I wasn't going to argue with her anymore. I wasn't going to beg for her attention, for her love, for her basic human consideration. I wasn't going to keep fighting for someone who had already checked out of the fight. If she truly believed that it wasn't her responsibility to make me happy, then maybe it was time for her to see what it felt like when I stopped making her happiness my own. The gardener was officially going on strike. I didn't make a grand announcement. I didn't say, "Hey, since you don't care about my happiness, I'm going to stop caring about yours." That would have been too easy for her, too obvious. It would have given her something to fight against, a drama to star in. No, I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to experience, in the slow, creeping silence of her everyday life, what it was like when the man who had spent years making her life easier, brighter, and warmer simply stopped. The first thing I stopped doing was checking in. It had been an automatic, deeply ingrained habit, sending her little texts throughout the day. "How's your morning going? Hope you ate lunch. Thinking of you." Not anymore. That first morning, after her Declaration of Independence, I left for work without saying a word. No "have a good day." No "drive safe." I just grabbed my keys, walked out the door, and left a void where a ritual used to be. When I got to my office, I saw my phone light up. A single confused message from her. "Did you leave already?" I smirked at the screen. A cold, unfamiliar feeling, and then I locked my phone. No response. I had always been the one to make our house feel like a home. I was the one who did the little things, the invisible labor that keeps a shared life running smoothly. I would turn on the coffee pot before she even woke up. I would make sure the fridge was stocked with the fresh groceries she liked. I would clean up the dishes she always left in the sink from the night before. I took care of things, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. But if my happiness wasn't her responsibility, then her comfort sure as hell wasn't mine. That night, she came home from her ceramics class to find the sink still full of dirty dishes from the previous evening's dinner. I was sitting on the couch, reading a book, completely indifferent to the mess. She dropped her bag on the floor and stared at the kitchen, then at me. "Seriously, Mark?" she muttered. I barely glanced at her. "What?" "The dishes. You didn't clean them." I shrugged, turning a page. "I assumed you'd handle it." For a second, she just stood there, her mouth slightly agape, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I could see the frustration flicker across her face, a storm gathering behind her eyes. But she forced herself to stay calm, to maintain her enlightened, unbothered facade. Without another word, she turned and started washing the dishes, the clatter of plates and silverware, a loud, angry protest in the quiet house. For the first time in our entire marriage, I let her. At first, she thought it was just a bad mood, a phase, something I'd get over. But I didn't. Day after day, I kept pulling back, methodically, deliberately. I didn't start conversations. I didn't ask her about her new friends from her spirituality circle. I didn't reach for her when we were in bed. And slowly, agonizingly for her, she started to notice. One night, about a week into my silent withdrawal, she finally spoke up. We were eating dinner takeout because I wasn't cooking anymore either when she set down her fork and looked at me. "You've been acting weird." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You're distant, cold. You barely talk to me anymore." I took a slow sip of my drink before answering, letting the silence stretch. "I guess I just had a realization," I said, my gaze steady. She frowned. "What realization?" I leaned back in my chair, my eyes locking with hers. "That my happiness is my own problem," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Not yours." The moment the words left my mouth, I saw it. The flicker of recognition in her eyes. The dawning horror as she remembered her own cold, dismissive statement. She shifted in her seat, suddenly, deeply uncomfortable. That's not what I meant." "Really?" I cut her off, my voice sharp for the first time. "Because that is exactly what you said." She pressed her lips together, a thin, hard line, clearly searching for the right response, the right way to spin this back in her favor. "Okay, fine," she said finally, her voice softer now, a calculated retreat. "But you don't have to act like this. You're being dramatic." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Dramatic? No, Sarah. I am just learning from you. I'm matching your energy." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She looked away, pushing her pad thai around on her plate, her appetite suddenly gone. She tried to pretend things were normal for the rest of the week, but I knew she felt the difference. She started texting me more, attempting to check in. I would respond when I felt like it, with brief, factual answers. She started trying to fix things in subtle, manipulative ways, asking if I wanted to watch a movie together, offering to make dinner. But I wasn't playing along. If she thought I was going to jump at the first meager sign of effort, she was dead wrong. For years, I had put in all the effort while she took it for granted. Now, it was her turn to feel what it was like to be the only one tending the garden. One night, I overheard her talking to her best friend on the phone. I wasn't eavesdropping. I just happened to walk past the bedroom as she was complaining. "I don't know what's wrong with him," she was saying, her voice a frustrated whine. "It's like he doesn't even care anymore." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. She was confused, frustrated, but I wasn't. I felt clear-headed, focused. For the first time in a very long time, I wasn't bitter. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was simply matching her energy. She had told me she didn't have to make me happy. Now, she was getting a first-hand, immersive lesson in what that philosophy truly meant when it was applied to her. The thing about relationships, the thing you only learn when one is dying, is that you don't notice the little things, the rhythms, the routines, the unspoken agreements until they're gone. And Sarah was starting to feel their absence with an acute, painful intensity. At first, she had shrugged off my withdrawal, convinced it was just me being moody, a temporary and insignificant storm that would pass. But now she was watching me. I could see it in the way her gaze would linger on me when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she would hesitate before speaking, as if testing the emotional temperature of the room, unsure of how I would respond. I wasn't mean. I wasn't cruel. I just stopped caring. Or at least, I stopped performing the act of caring. I had spent years putting her happiness first, years making sure she felt loved, secure, and appreciated. And she had taken it all for granted, like a trust fund baby who never once considered where the money came from. So now she was getting a taste of what her life looked like when her happiness was no longer my primary, all-consuming project. And she did not like it. The first real crack in her composure came one evening when I got home from work. Usually, she barely acknowledged my arrival. Just a quick, distracted nod from the couch, or a mumbled "hey" while she scrolled on her phone. But tonight was different. She was waiting for me in the kitchen. "Hey," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too eager as soon as I stepped through the door. "How was work?" I almost laughed. For years, she hadn't bothered to ask that question, and now, suddenly, she was the welcome wagon. I shrugged, walking past her to set down my bag on the dining table. Fine. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to engage, to ask about her day, to start a conversation, to do the emotional labor I had always done. But I didn't, because that's what she wanted. She wanted me to slip back into the old, comfortable habits, to make it easy for her. But I wasn't playing the game anymore. The rules had changed. A few days later, I went out with some colleagues for drinks after work. I hadn't told her in advance. I didn't ask for her permission. Why would I? She didn't think she owed me an explanation for her emotional state. So why should I keep bending over backwards to keep her in the loop about my social plans? At around 9 p.m., I checked my phone to see 3 missed calls from her and a single demanding text. "Where are you?" I let the message sit for a good 20 minutes before I deigned to reply. "Out." 15 minutes later, she called again. "This time," I answered. "Hey," I said, my tone casual as I took a sip of my beer, the happy chatter of the bar in the background. "Something wrong?" "Where are you?" she repeated, her voice tight with an irritation she was trying and failing to conceal. "I told you," I said, keeping my tone light. "I'm out." She let out a frustrated sigh. "Well, when are you coming home?" I smirked. A real, genuine smirk. "Not sure. Didn't think it mattered." Silence. I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head as she tried to process this new, insubordinate version of her husband. Before she could formulate a response, I ended the call. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt a surge of exhilarating freedom. The next morning, something had fundamentally shifted. For the first time in months, maybe even years, she cooked breakfast. Not just for herself, but for both of us. I walked into the kitchen to find a plate of scrambled eggs and toast waiting for me at my spot at the table. She was standing by the stove, pretending to be nonchalant about it. "Figured I'd make you something before work." I leaned against the counter, staring at the plate. "Why?" I asked, my voice genuinely curious. She blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean, why?" "You never cared before." She frowned, a defensive posture. "That's not true." I gave her a long, pointed look. "Really? When was the last time you did something for me, something thoughtful, without me having to ask for it first?" She didn't have an answer, because we both knew the truth. That night, after we got home from a tense dinner with friends, she finally snapped. She waited until we were in the bedroom, then she turned to face me, her arms crossed, her face a mask of frustration. "Are you trying to punish me?" I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "You know for what." I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "Do I?" She let out a frustrated breath. "You're acting different. You're distant. You're cold. You don't care about anything anymore." I took a slow step towards her, my voice dangerously calm. "You mean, I've stopped trying to make you happy?" She flinched. She knew. She knew I was throwing her own careless words back in her face like a handful of sharp stones. I leaned in just slightly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Feels shitty, doesn't it?" For the first time, she had nothing to say. She just stood there, staring at me, the full devastating realization of her own hypocrisy finally sinking in. Because this was the moment she understood. This was the moment she realized that when I stopped caring, when I stopped tending to her half of the garden, everything changed. And for the first time since she had delivered her cold, indifferent verdict, she was afraid. Something had fundamentally shifted in her. I could see it. For the first time in years, she was no longer the one in control of the emotional thermostat of our marriage. She had gotten used to me chasing her, used to me bending, adjusting, sacrificing, all to make things work, to keep the peace. Now, I wasn't playing anymore, and she was in a full-blown panic. At first, she tried to act like nothing was wrong. She still posted her perfect, curated little pictures online, laughing with her friends, showing off a new outfit from her ceramics class, pretending like her life was a beautiful, sun-drenched Instagram feed. But I saw the truth. I saw the way her eyes would flicker to me when she thought I wasn't looking. A desperate, searching glance. I saw how she hesitated before speaking, how her fingers would twitch when she reached for her phone, a small telltale sign of her growing anxiety. It started small, the sudden, almost desperate affection. The way she started reaching for my hand when we were out in public, as if she needed to physically remind people and herself that we were still a couple. The way she would lean into me when we were sitting on the couch together, a gesture she hadn't initiated in months. The way she started texting me more often throughout the day. Her "hope you're having a good day." Her "what do you want for dinner tonight?" Her "miss you." Miss me. Now she missed me. I stared at that particular message for a long moment before locking my phone and tossing it on the couch. No reply, because she didn't miss me. Not really. She missed the man who had worshipped her. She missed the version of me who had spent his days and nights making sure she was happy, no matter how little she gave in return. She wasn't trying to fix things. She was trying to reset the balance of power back to its old, comfortable, one-sided equilibrium. But that version of me, that tireless gardener, he was gone. After a few days of me barely responding to her attempts to re-engage, her patience snapped. One evening, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when she stormed into the room, her face flushed with anger. "Are we just gonna keep acting like this?" I didn't look up. "Like what?" "Like strangers," she shot back. "Like we don't even know each other." I exhaled slowly through my nose and set my phone down. "You mean the way you've been acting for the past year?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew. She knew I was right. "I told you," I continued, my voice calm and even. "Your happiness isn't my job, just like mine wasn't yours." She winced, the weight of her own careless words, finally, crushingly, pressing down on her. "But that's not—" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I didn't mean it like that." I leaned back, studying her, a scientist observing a specimen. "Then, how exactly did you mean it, Sarah?" She let out a frustrated breath, crossing her arms over her chest. "I don't know. I was just frustrated. I felt like you expected too much from me." I nodded slowly. "And now that I expect nothing from you, you don't like that either." Silence. She couldn't argue with that, because deep down, she knew the truth. She hadn't wanted to be responsible for my happiness until she finally realized what her life looked like when her own happiness was no longer my priority. It happened about a week later. She came home late from work, looking tired and defeated. I barely acknowledged her. She went straight to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. I figured she just needed her space. But then I heard it. A soft, muffled sound. The sound of someone crying. For a second, I just stood there in the hallway, listening. This was new. She wasn't the type to cry. Not like this. Not quietly. Alone. In the dark. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a small, traitorous pang of something pity, empathy. But I didn't go to her. I didn't knock on the door, because this was her moment. Her moment to finally understand, to feel what it was like when the person you counted on, the person you assumed would always be there to comfort you, was suddenly gone. Even though I was just down the hall, I knew In that moment, that she felt completely, utterly alone, because I wasn't hers anymore, not in the way she had always assumed I would be. The next morning, she was quiet, her eyes swollen. She didn't say a word about what had happened. She just watched me, her gaze searching my expression for something, for some sign that I still cared. But I didn't give her one. Not yet, because I wanted her to sit with this, to feel the weight of it, to finally, fully understand what she had done. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about punishment. This was about balance. For years, I had carried the entire weight of this relationship alone. Now it was her turn. The silence between us was suffocating. For weeks, she had been trying to reach me, trying to fix what she never thought could break. But I wasn't making it easy for her, because I needed her to understand. And that night, when she finally spoke the words I never thought I would hear from her, I knew that she did. I was wrong. It was quiet, barely above a whisper. I almost didn't hear it. But when I turned to look at her, the expression on her face, the raw, unvarnished devastation told me everything. Tears welled in her eyes, her fingers gripping the fabric of her sweatshirt as if she needed something to hold on to keep from completely unraveling. "I was wrong," she said again, her voice trembling this time. I thought I didn't have to make you happy. I thought you'd always just be there, no matter what." I just stared at her, because this was the moment. The moment she had finally come face to face with the catastrophic damage she had done. "And now?" I asked, my voice steady. "Now that you finally realized it, what do you expect me to do?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know," she admitted. I just want to fix this." I let out a humorless laugh. "Fix it? Sarah, you don't get to just snap your fingers and fix this. You spent years treating me like I didn't matter, like my happiness was an inconvenience to you. And now, suddenly, it's a priority?" Her breath hitched. "I thought," she trailed off, biting her lip. "I thought you'd never leave." "That's the problem," I said, my voice firm. "You never thought you had to try. You never thought I would walk away. You thought I would just stay, no matter how unhappy I was, because I always had." She pressed a hand over her mouth, choking on a quiet sob, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel sorry for her. "Please," she whispered, reaching for my hand. "I don't want to lose you." I stared at her fingers, at the desperation in the way she clutched at me now, after years of treating me like I was disposable. Did she love me? Or did she just love what I had given her? The attention, the security, the unwavering certainty that no matter what, I would always be there. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Sarah," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Her breath caught. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said, holding her gaze. "But I'm here now. I want to try." I let out a bitter chuckle. "And what happens in 6 months? When you get comfortable again? When you stop trying? When it goes right back to how it was before?" She froze. Because we both knew. This wasn't about a single apology. This was about who she had been for years. This was about the fundamental pattern of our relationship. "I can change," she said, her voice desperate. "I swear I can." "Can you?" I cut in. She didn't answer, because deep down, she wasn't sure either. As I stood there, watching her fall apart, I realized I was already gone. Mentally, emotionally, I had checked out long before this moment. I had already learned what my life felt like without her constant low-grade neglect. And for the first time in a long, long time, I liked it. I agreed to go to counseling with her, on one condition. No more empty promises. No more talk. I needed to see action. Our therapist, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Dr. Evans, gave us an assignment. She called it the garden. For 1 month, we were each to tend to the other's happiness, as if it were our own garden, with small daily acts of care and attention. I was skeptical, but I agreed. And for the first week, she tried. She made my coffee. She asked about my day. But by the second week, the old patterns began to emerge. The weeds of her self-absorption started to creep back in, and I knew it wouldn't last. At our final session, I brought it up. "The garden is dying, Sarah," I said quietly, "because you've stopped watering it." She looked at Dr. Evans, then at me. Her eyes filled with a desperate, pleading expression. "I'm trying." "No," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "You're not. You're performing the act of trying, and I can't live my life in a performance anymore." I told her I was moving out, that I needed space, that I needed to find my own happiness on my own terms. And as I walked out of that office, leaving her sitting there with the ruins of the life she had so carelessly neglected, I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel anger. I just felt peace. The quiet, profound peace of a gardener who has finally stopped trying to cultivate a barren plot of land and is now free to go find a place where things can actually grow.